Hello, puppies and kittens. Welcome to another episode of Reading Joseph Smith. And we're running with a little bit of a skeleton crew today because Mr. Deity is doing more Mr. Deity and won't be. He's reviving the Mr. Deity series, and won't be able to join us until next week. He did tell me he'll be able to make it next week, and then Bryce, as I understand, is also doing a debate somewhere. Is he?
He did it already today, but I think he's traveling or something like that. Anyway, he told me he wasn't going to be able to make it.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, we still have Shannon. We still have Jimmy Snow. We still got Walker Bow. And I'm glad we got y'all to carry the show.
Did you rhyme that on purpose?
I did not. All right. So I forget which chapter are we on? Oh, yes. Second Nephi. Chapter 4.
Yes.
So what happened to where did Snow go?
He had to go get coffee. He said he will be back.
I had to go grab him because right at the moment that we were pushing the button, this asshole shot out. He was on my arm like this and saw and just suddenly like leapt off my hand and shot through my computer desk and went behind my computer desk and all of a sudden, I'm crawling around on my hands and knees on the floor trying to find his ass. Right as 2 minutes ago, right as we were about to begin, and I got him back. He needs to be handled more, so he'll stop with all of his weirdness.
That's funny.
He doesn't have a good attitude. He wants to convince everybody that he's a rattlesnake, and so he's constantly hissing and rattling, and he just needs to be held more so that he understands love.
Got it. Is he one of your newest ones?
Oh, no. I've had him since August, and he's grown. He's at least twice as big as he was. He should get up to like 6, maybe 8 feet long, because he's normally pretty big. Anyway, enough about that. Walker Bow, what's going on with your world?
Oh, nothing much. I did Atheist for the Homeless last week, so that was fun. And this week I'm just avoiding family as much as possible.
Brilliant.
Excellent.
Okay. And Shannon, you?
Oh my God, it's a crazy weekend. Yeah, we were supposed to go to my in-laws for Thanksgiving, and then the night before, my husband took a COVID test, and he's like, "Oh, I'm positive. We are not going to Dad's house tomorrow." And I was like, "Cool, okay." So we've been quarantining here. He's got the basement, I've got the upstairs. It's really weird, actually. So when we talk to each other, it's either via text or just yelling at each other down the stairwell.
I had to help my son move a couple weeks ago, and he had COVID, and so does his wife. And I had to go into their house to help him carry heavy furniture. But we're all wearing gloves and masks, and he had not just the mask; he also had the face shield and everything.
Right.
And so we did as much precautionary stuff as we can. I'm still carrying a heavy piece of furniture with him, and it's still inside his house for that purpose, but still managed to avoid infection, which I was very pleased with. I didn't need COVID again.
No. Yeah. Oh my God.
And here's Jimmy Snow. What you been doing the last week or so? Chewing.
Eating. It's Thanksgiving. It's the biggest stuff yourself, you can't move holiday of the year.
I can honestly say I did not have any Thanksgiving dinner this week. I don't have, what's that thing, love in my life. So this is just me trying to stuff some lunch down because today has been jam-packed. What have I been up to in the last week? Getting ready for the new shows to launch. So we're launching 2 new shows this week on the line, Skep Talk and Hostility. Monday's episode of Skep Talk will be with Shannon Q and Forrest Valkai, and Hostility will be myself joined by a sex coach, a world-renowned reality TV star sex coach, Alyssa Lubacek. So that's what I'm up to and working on and stuff.
And by the way, we have Shannon Q in the chat.
In the chat.
Woo!
Okay. All right. So who is going to do the reading today?
Once I finish chewing, I'm happy to help.
I will start so that Jimmy can eat.
Okay.
Yes, Grandma is in the house, right?
My rural grandma, everyone.
We are here. The only accent I can do is this one. Yes. Okay. All right. And now I, Bubba Nephi, speak concerning the prophecies which my daddy hath spoken concerning Joseph, who was carried into Egypt. Remember last time we were talking about the Joseph, all like 5,000 different Josephs, but we had the Joseph in Egypt, we had Nephi's youngest brother Joseph, and there was also Joseph Smith and all these other. Okay, so just a reminder, this Joseph is carried into Egypt. For behold, he truly prophesied concerning all his seed, and the prophecies which he wrote, there are not many greater. And he prophesied concerning us and our future generations. Do you remember anything about Joseph prophesying about people in the Americas? Is that anywhere in the Bible?
I don't remember Joseph Smith giving any prophecies yet, except the reporting the ones that where he was prophesied.
Yeah, but did Joseph in Egypt prophesy? I'm trying to remember my Bible stories. I mostly remember him running from Potiphar's wife and playing tricks on his brothers when they came to get food. And
I tend to understand prophecy in the Bible a bit differently than believers do, because they will think that they'll tell me that one piece of one sentence is a prophecy about something, but that the rest of the story has nothing to do with that thing. And it means both things simultaneously because that's prophetic language.
Right.
Apparently, Joseph, I mean, I'm briefly looking at some stuff. Oh, never mind. And this is sourced from a BYU paper. Never mind.
Never mind. Because that's the other thing is all the footnotes for this, I'll go to other Book of Mormon shit. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But before we move forward, because it's actually relevant, did you all hear Apple is releasing a product which you speak into it and it translates it into a nonsense language that's never existed?
So we can do Reformed Egyptian?
It's called the iNephi. Good night. Bye.
All right. On that note, I'm gonna mention a couple of chats here. X-Comer ZZZ offers 50 Norwegian kroner with no message. Thank you very much for that. And then the Sinister Porpoise, I love that. $2. Joseph Smith was called a prophet.
Yes.
Dum 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 dum.
Dum 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 dum.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to do the South Park thing. Yeah.
Was that what that is?
Yeah. Dum 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 dum.
Yes, he wrote the Book of Mormon. Dum 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 dum.
And Marty was dum dum dum. Martin Smith. Martin Harris, but his wife was smart. Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody go watch the South Park Mormon episode.
After.
It's surprisingly accurate.
It is incredibly accurate. Yeah.
And to the point that when I was a Mormon and I watched it, I was like, oh, this is all bullshit. And then found out later that I was the idiot running around saying, he didn't put a stone in a hat. Turns out I was AITA. I'm the asshole.
And then the regular, like this life South Park people on there, the Mormons behaved precisely the way Mormons behave. And they just went, yeah, it was.
Except for I think the one kid did tell Stan at the very end to go fuck himself or something.
Probably.
He swore, I
I'm
remember, and was like, that's not a real one.
He's not a real Mormon.
It's not a real Mormon, no. Yeah. All right. And the prophecies which he wrote, there are not many greater. And he prophesied concerning us and our future generations, and they are written upon the plates of brass. Those ones that Nephi had to kill a passed out drunk guy to get. Yeah. Wherefore, after my father had made an end of speaking concerning the prophecies of Joseph, he called the children of Laman, his sons and his daughters, and said unto them, behold, my sons and my daughters, who are the sons and the daughters of my firstborn, I would that you would give ear unto my words. For the Lord God hath said that, inasmuch as ye shall keep my commandments, ye shall prosper in the land. And inasmuch as ye will not keep my commandments, ye shall be cut off from my presence. Which...
What does it take to get cut off from God's presence, and then just we don't have to worry about God anymore?
According to Mormonism, this is hell, right? Like this is the modern view of hell. Like when Joseph Smith wrote this, he was thinking fire brimstone kind of hell. But later, this will now be when you are going to hell, you are being cut off from the presence of God and your family. Yeah.
And anymore, you pretty much have to choose it. Like it used to just be like, if you give Joseph a bad vibe or you don't let him fuck your wife or daughter, then you could be going to outer darkness. But now it's like Hitler's going to be in the celestial kingdom, right?
You and all of your family get to go to outer darkness if this little 14-year-old girl doesn't say yes to Joseph Smith. Yeah. But yeah. Okay. But really, how you get to outer darkness changes as whatever society is doing. Because like a lot of it has, what I got raised with was that those who go to outer darkness are those who knew the total truth of it all, had a sure witness of Christ and turned their backs on it. But then it's like, well, how many people actually have that? Because to have that, you have to have seen him. So therefore, it's really like a handful of people. But then it gets expanded out to the point where it's like, if you have gone through the temple, made all your covenants, turned your back on them, so I was like, so that means me coming in here and shitting all over the Book of Mormon after having gone through the temple and done all the shit that I was supposed to do there? Does that mean I'm going to outer darkness according to Mormonism?
I think by modern definitions, that's sort of what I was getting on with like the you have to choose, that you'll still have an opportunity to grovel at the feet of Joseph Smith and beg him to be your lawyer still for Judgment Day. And that's the whole the shebang.
So it's we get judged by all of them.
Don't you guys want eternally worship all day and every day singing praises? I mean, doesn't that sound great? I mean, duh.
I got to tell you, honestly, I would much rather hear Tim Curry's voice wanting to introduce me to the gates of deepest darkness.
There we go.
You played that role so well.
I only think between heaven and hell, I know which one the orgies will be in.
Yes.
And all the best people. Certainly the best conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth Chris, $10. Thank you very much for that. Says Joseph in his Technicolor Dreamcoat interpreted dreams. So I guess that's kind of prophesying. Shrug.
Sure, why not? Yeah. Mormons will call it whatever the fuck they want. Yeah.
Okay.
Especially, got it. Yes. But behold, my sons and my daughter. Or did you have something else to read? Sorry.
Oh no, I didn't. You read on, Grandma. I'm going to go put him up.
Okay.
Read on, Grandma.
Read on. It's the only accent I can do. But behold, my sons and my daughters, I cannot go down to my grave, save I should leave a blessing upon you. For behold, I know that if you are brought up in the way ye should go, ye will not depart from it.
And
Favorite quote to give.
Yes. This is one that my parents pile on the guilt, right? Onto themselves, right? Because they failed me, they haven't done everything that they should have done.
Exactly.
And they feel like it's their responsibility that I am an atheist and that I wasn't brought up correctly.
Mm-hmm. And they blame, the church leaders will blame the parents for it because they're like, well, then you did something wrong in raising Shannon. You did something wrong if she's turned away from it. Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense though. Like in their own doctrine, like in the pre-existence when we chose to follow Satan or follow Jesus.
Yeah,
right?
We chose free agency or not. Yeah.
Free agency. It doesn't make any sense in the whole regard of things. Like if you have a choice, anyway.
Well,
my
and
dad
they
has said,
promote. Sorry, go.
I was my dad has said things like, my single greatest shame is that I raised 3 of my sons to know the Lord and they turned their back on him. Yeah. Obviously he actually raised I don't know how many kids they're up to, like 18. They keep going to the kids store and getting more. But I fully expect that I probably have siblings I haven't been told about, which is why I'm also not going to tell them when I start having kids. I'm just going to keep that a secret from them.
Keep it a secret. Yeah. Well, the thing too is, they say all this stuff about free agency, but they don't actually practice it. And they're finally, in the last 6 months, saying that quiet part out loud, because you've got the leaders of the church now saying, once you were baptized, you gave up your free agency. But that's how they're requiring kids now finally to actually go on missions and to find, all of this shit going on. And so this is all part of that whole thing of, anyway. It's all layers of it. Gotta love Mormonism. It's not a cult. No, of course not.
Hashtag not a cult.
Hashtag not a cult.
I know I said it wrong. I'm so old. All right. Wherefore, if ye are cursed, behold, I leave my blessing upon you, that the cursing may be taken from you and be answered upon the heads of your parents.
What does that mean?
That means if you get cursed because you're behaving badly, so like if I'm being cursed because I'm behaving badly, they're going to take the cursing from me and give it to my daddy, to my dad. Sorry, I should speak right.
Yeah, this is guilty and trip the parents for not teaching their children right.
Because that is the parents' fault that their children made different choices.
It's pretty messed up.
It's really fucked up.
I got to remember that line for my Mormon family.
Yeah. And it's all part of that whole same thing of, when the kid gets to be 12 and you say, all right, well, I'm going to let you choose what you get to do. We're going to let you make more decisions. You can choose whether you go to church or not. And the kid says, great, I'm not going. And then parent says, no, you made the wrong choice. Try again.
I had that same speech to me.
Oh my God.
I'm not kidding. The last time my dad ever threatened to fight me was over one of those altercations where I was too sick to go. I was dealing with medical stuff and he just didn't care that day. So I would have been like 16 or 17 and I'm near the front door and he's like, you're getting in the car and you're going to church. And I was like, first of all, I'm not even dressed for it. And second of all, no, I'm not. I don't feel well. And he goes, you're in my house. You live by my rules. And if you don't like that, we can step outside. And he opens the door and he like takes a step out. And my dad's kind of old, like even then. And and I'm 16, 17, like I'm in my prime. And I'm like, I can now take you. Like, so basically what I just said was like, I would destroy you. And I sort of chuckled and I walked downstairs and went to bed and he apparently went to church. It's the closest he ever acknowledged to like, oh, the dynamics definitely changed. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. I can't. And he never threatened to me ever again.
My understanding was when you reach, 16, 17 years old, you think you can take on your dad and you might try it. But what happened with me was I didn't think that. I didn't think I could take on I was with my evil stepdad in this case. He was convinced he could take me on. I just assumed that he could because he's a lot bigger than me because he's fat old man kind of thing. And then one day he reached over my mom's shoulder. She's trying to intercede. He reached over her shoulder and punched me in the mouth, put two of my teeth through my lip. And I don't know, you just that broke the spell. And I said, that's all you got?
Right. That happened so with us, it was my dad stopped with physical punishments besides like threatening to fight you. Probably like around the time I was turning like 12. Cause see, I have, as far as I know, I have 12 siblings, but as far as like my biological ones, I was the fifth biological son. And then I had like one adopted older sister. And so there were already 5 that had come before me. And the thing is like, he stopped around when I was 12 doing it to any of us. And it was because he was like throwing his shoulder out using the belt. So he was getting old and feeble. So then like for years though, I still had that fear. I have a friend, Dominic, who comes from a religious family. And he's told this story a few times, but where like he got into it with his dad as an adult. His dad was like getting crazy with him and his siblings and like threatens to hit him. And he's just like, all right, fine. And his dad hits him and he's like, that's what I've been afraid of my whole life. You hit like what I imagine mom hits like. And it's just like that's what you got. And it was like, you you spend your whole life thinking of this superior person. And now I'm sitting here going like, in my older age, I think back to like when I was 15 or so, and I wish I had taken him up on the offer a couple of times and really gone for it. Cause now he's so old and feeble that I would just accidentally murder him if I took him up on it these days.
My stepdad goaded me into a fight twice.
Wow.
So I've only had like 7 fights in my life, and 2 of them were with my stepdad.
Yeah.
And both of them ended in him being humiliated and embarrassed.
Yeah.
In one fight, he wanted to do it in the front yard where all the neighbors could see because there were people out mowing their lawns. He was going to teach me a lesson in front of everyone. He swung, I dodged, I tagged him in the nose. He swung with the other arm, I dodged, I tagged him in the nose again. He swung 3 or 4 times, never hit me once. I hit him 1 time for each swing. And he just got frustrated and walked back into the
house. Like that fight scene in Under the Banner of Heaven with the Laffertys. Yeah. The hard part is Mormonism, for all of Mormonism, as long as it's been around, is very much pro-capital punishment, pro-corporal punishment, all of that kind of stuff. And
spare the rod, spoil the child.
Right. And while they don't necessarily use those terms,
and that term does not exist anywhere in the Bible, by the way.
Right. That's what they believe. And so with the stories like these, like what you just told, the two of you, there are at least 100 of the altar side where the father beats the kid's ass, even a 20-year-old's kid's ass, because of whatever reason. And that's one of the hard parts is that is very much a very serious, big issue when it comes to this church. Is no, there is no free agency. They talk about it. They say how important it is, that was what this Lord Heaven was all about, but there really is none. And so
Walker, did you say that the spare the rod's not in the Bible?
Yeah. No, it's not. It's a
Proverbs 13:24.
Read it again. Read it out loud. I don't.
Which one do you want? Which version? King James is what we were raised with. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly.
Oh, he means like the exact phrasing of spare the rod, spoil the child.
That's like sort of the shortened version we've done, but that's where it comes from, is Proverbs 13:24.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the bumper sticker phrase.
Right. Exactly. It's the catchphrase. Yeah.
Right.
So Sarah Dye offers $20. Thank you very much. Says, I am sad that I can't stay and listen live. I got a family dinner to attend. I am looking forward to listening later. Other good news, I get to watch the construction of the Linden Temple 2 minutes from my house.
Yep. And it's 5 minutes from mine. I'm waving at you, Sarah, direction of your home right now.
I could be compelled to offer some sort of merch that says like spare the rod, hate the daddy. I don't know. There will be people in the audience who understand what I'm saying, but maybe this is the wrong group. Maybe it's lost.
Maybe.
Well, this is a chat audience, so you're not going to get laughter. You'll never know if your comedy works.
No.
Not yet.
All right.
You missed one
onwards. Are we going onwards now? Or sorry, go.
Well, you missed another more comment, I think.
Was there?
Elizabeth Chris.
Liz Chris.
Yeah, I read that one.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
And we got Sarah Dye in there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Linden Temple. Shannon waved. Got it. Okay. Wherefore, because of my blessing, the Lord God will not suffer that ye shall perish. Got that? Because he blessed them, they're not going to perish. Wherefore he will be merciful unto you and unto your seed forever. And it came to pass that after my father had made an end of speaking to the sons and daughters, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask if people used that kind of terminology in the 1800s. Apparently. Or is all of this just King's, like King James speak?
That's a good question. Very likely it's King James speak. Who was his scribe on this one, Walker?
I think this is still Oliver Cowdery. And as far as that one line, I think it's only referenced in like a talk of there's a Book of Mormon student manual on religion, and it's President Irene insisted God was merciful to the Lamanites despite him putting wrath upon them. And this is referencing that. That's the only thing I could come up with. I don't see anything.
Somebody made a comment. Deborah Grace says, meanwhile, NC HB 158 calls for deadly force against a woman seeking reproductive health care.
Yep. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Ivory Darkness. I love that name.
Me too.
It's so much punishment. No, I'm sorry. So much punishment talk. People might get the wrong idea of the content of this channel.
Yeah. Yeah, this channel talking about how shitty Mormonism is.
Or is it the right idea?
The right kind of punishment.
I'm here for a reason, and that's that I'm lonely.
Yes, we know. and yet you're all alone.
Who's a naughty
in
boy,
this
Jimmy? Who's a
room
naughty
by
boy?
yourself, speaking out into the ether. All right. It came to pass that after my daddy had made an end of speaking to the sons and daughters of Laman, he caused the sons and daughters of Lemuel to be brought before him. And he spake unto them, saying, Behold, my sons and my daughters, who are the sons and the daughters of my second son. Behold, I leave unto you the same blessing which I left unto the sons and daughters of Laman, which I could have just done all at the same time. Wherefore thou shalt not utterly be destroyed, but in the end thy seed shall be blessed. Now, what they really mean here is those seed, because, they call the Native Americans Lamanites, which means they're the descendants of Laman, and so it means they're being blessed by Joseph Smith, bringing the Book of Mormon to them.
I keep hearing
That's
it
how
wrong.
they're blessing.
It's like these are my kids, Hymen and Labia.
There we go. And it came to pass that when my father had made an end of speaking unto them, behold, he spake unto the sons of Ishmael, and even all his households. So he just kept going and saying all the same shitty things and one after another. And after he had made an end of speaking unto them, he spake unto Sam, saying, Blessed art thou and thy seed, and for thou shalt inherit the land like unto thy brother Nephi, because you followed Nephi like a puppy follows his master. And thy seed shall be numbered with his seed, and thou shalt be even like unto thy brother, and thy seed like unto his seed, and thou shalt be blessed in all thy days.
Sam is Nephi's younger brother, and they're eventually
older brother
combined.
He's the older brother. Sam is the third son. He's the third son.
Third Sam. That's right. But they combined and they become the Nephites. They don't call it the Samites. They call it the Nephites.
Yeah. All the good guys get called Nephites. All the bad guys get called Lamanites.
It's almost commendable with the narcissism of Joseph Smith that he invents a younger brother that is his direct descendant called Joseph, and that it isn't the Lamanites versus the Josephites. I almost commend him for being, but now I'm thinking like somebody else in the room where Oliver would be like, well, then why don't we just name him Oliver and make it the Oliverites? And okay, let's meet in the middle. We made up this stupid Nephi guy. He can be the ites.
I think also what I think is that Jacob and Joseph got brought in just sort of as an afterthought. He'd already made plans for the Nephite thing and all that shit, which, I mean, if first Nephi was written after all of the others were done, it would make sense because he's already got Nephites and Lamanites, and Jacob and Joseph were like thrown in there kind of, well, okay, they've been out in the wilderness forever. We got to prove it. So we'll have more children born. And so at that point, he couldn't go and change it all. I think that's really more of it.
I'm not meaning to shame anyone with this, but I feel like Ishmael gives off super cuck vibes. No one else? Just me?
I think Ishmael is just a cardboard character because Joseph Smith really didn't know how to do multiple storylines.
That's kind of what I'm saying, though. He's like, yeah, I'll follow you into the desert, and sure, you can have my daughters, and I'm not going to complain ever.
Why the fuck not? Plus,
I'm not going to have any lines in my script at all. I'm just
none whatsoever. I just get to follow whatever. Yeah.
Doesn't complain once about being out, and then he dies in the wilderness. That was back in First Nephi. Toward the end, he died like out in the. Whose retirement dream is that shit?
Right. I mean, how much money did he leave behind?
Elizabeth Chris offers $20.
Cucksworth.
Thank you, and she says, $20 for innuendo, Jimmy, and the happiness and laughter it brings.
There we go.
I like that the word innuendo sort of sounds like innuendo.
Yeah.
It's
one of those words that sounds like it means like moist.
That's true. That's true.
All right. And it came to pass that after my father Lehi had spoken unto all his household, according to the feelings of his heart, and the spirit of the Lord which was in him, he waxed old. And it came to pass that he died and was buried. Right. So basically, let's see. He did like the emperor, where he gets struck by whatever the fuck it was that somebody did to him whenever in Star Wars, and all of a sudden he just grew really old. or like, ooh, even better. What's his name? The guy in the Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade when he drank from the wrong
Oh
cup.
yeah, he chose poorly.
He chose poorly. So that's it. He waxed old.
He waxed old.
And he died and was buried. Okay. All right. And it came to pass that not many days after his death, Laman and Lemuel and the sons of Ishmael were angry with me because I'm a dick, because of the admonitions of the Lord. For I, Nephi, was constrained to speak unto them according to his word. For I had spoken many things unto them, and also my father before his death, many of which things are written upon mine other plates. So that's why you don't get to see me behaving like a dick. It's because they're on the other plates that get used here. And a more history part are written upon mine other plates. Because this is the religion part, not the history. So it doesn't have to make sense.
They were really mad about my sequel, okay? Yeah. I was just telling them about the story, and then they were upset, and then they don't even like my sequel very much. I'm really upset.
They don't like it. Yeah. They're mean to me. They are mean to me because I have been telling them what to do. Yes. And upon these, I write the things of my soul, these plates that we're reading right now, and many of the scriptures which are engraven upon the plates of brass. So I transfer the others over because I get bored and don't know what to say. For my soul delighteth in the scriptures, and my heart pondereth them, and writeth them for the learning and the profit of my children. Behold, my soul delighteth in the things of the Lord, and my heart pondereth continually upon the things which I have seen and heard. Nevertheless, notwithstanding the great goodness of the Lord in showing me his great and marvelous works, my heart exclaimeth, "Oh, wretched man that I am!
That's from
Yeah,
Romans.
my heart sorroweth because of my flesh. My soul grieveth because of mine iniquities."
That's Romans 7:24.
I thought it was Shannon going for the Oscar.
Yeah. Oh, wretched man that I am. Hey, I just realized Ishmael. So he's in. If you didn't know, in history, he would be doing this probably in Emma's parents' house. So I'm wondering if some of the Ishmael references are to the family in the room that are sick of Joseph talking all the time. You know what I mean?
Oh, that would make sense because Emma's daddy did not like him.
No, he did not like them. They lost. Obviously, they had an affair.
Yes.
Got hitched.
Yeah, eloped, didn't they?
Eloped, and then when he came back, he didn't have any money, and so then he got convicted of treasure seeking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now he was running away, and they ran away to Emma's parents' house, and that's where these events would be written down.
Yeah. Good. Yeah.
Ivory Darkness says, I got all the way to Alma in my last burst of reading, and I must say, the story improved greatly after the words of Mormon.
Yes.
Still polished turds and all.
Yes. That is true.
It's when they found
Alma does a lot of skipping around, like, okay, 40 years later, this happened in this verse,
Once upon a time, many years ago, I had a pair of Jehovah's Witnesses show up to my door. And I remember them asking, we talked about the Bible very briefly, and eventually they said, well, there's some good stuff in the Bible too. And I'm like, yeah, there's so little of it though, compared to such awful stuff in such a volume that it's really just lipstick on a pig.
Yes.
And I remember them just staring at me starkly. They didn't have another argument. And so they made the same one again. Well, there's some good stuff.
Mormons will do the
a couple
same
of lines.
Yes. Yep.
You got a bumper sticker maybe or a t-shirt. That's it.
I remember during my deconversion process where I took every good line of the Bible and then I wrote it down, and it was 2 pages worth. I mean, it was not. Granted, the font was a little small, but over 1,200 pages, I had 2 pages of summary, right?
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's not worth it.
Oh,
and then
my
Quran,
God.
and then I wrote down the Quran, right? Here's all the good things in the Quran, and here's all the bad things in the Quran. And they were they were just horrendous things. So they were both really long bad lists, right? Like there was a lot more worse in the Bible and the Quran than there was in the goodness of it. Book of
I
Mormon.
got the impression that with
I
the
did
Quran,
with Book of Mormon, but there was
with a
hardly
Quran, you might have one page. If you skip lines, you might have one page of quotable phrases, like t-shirt or bumper sticker phrases, and then the bad stuff in the Quran is like the Quran.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Which was harder to read?
Oh, it was definitely harder to read the Quran. I thought it would be so much easier because it's so much shorter.
Yeah.
But you don't realize how much is cultural. I mean, you're just supposed to know because you were raised in it. You're supposed to know what all these interpretations are. And I suspected that going in. That's just why I had like I'm having now. I had a panel of people that knew the religion better than me. They were all raised in Islam. They all spoke Arabic. There was one guy that didn't speak Arabic, but everybody else did. And so they were all able to tell me, well, according to this or that hadith, according to this or that imam. And so they're having to do all of this outsourcing to explain these cultural traditions, things that are not in the book at all. And how would I know any of that? Right. Because I wasn't raised in this religion. And then all of this is cultural. I've often said that if you grew up in Punjab, India, you would have met Muslims, you would have met Sikhs, you would have met Hindus. You'd probably not ever have met a Christian. So if you read a Bible and you didn't have any kind of Christian background, you would never know that Jesus was supposed to be God, and you would never know that the serpent was supposed to be the devil.
Yeah.
Because those things are not in the book. Those
right?
are just things you assume, you're told to interpret it that way. That's cultural. And there's a whole lot of that going on in the Quran.
Yeah. That is true. All right. Let me emote some more. I need to choose some more furniture here. Okay. I am encompassed about because of the temptations and the sins which do so easily beset me. And when I desire to rejoice, my heart groaneth because of my sins. Nevertheless,
you don't sound like my grandma anymore because she didn't drink that much.
And that's taken from Hebrews, I think. Hebrews 12.
Yep. Nevertheless, I know in whom I have trusted. My God hath been my support. He hath led me through mine afflictions in the wilderness, especially when I broke my damn bow. And he hath preserved me upon the waters of the great deep. He hath filled me with his love, even unto the consuming of my flesh.
Shannon's getting too into this.
Well, isn't this like biblical revival to you? Right? I mean, I consuming of my flesh, and they're like shaking, and their hands are like in the air.
I'm pretending like I'm Jesus, and everybody's eating my flesh. He hath confounded mine enemies unto the causing of them to quake before me. Behold, he hath heard me cry by day, and he hath given me knowledge by visions in the nighttime. Yes. Sorry. Wrong vision. Sorry. Not vivid dreams.
Mormon skeptic that chimes in to say, I forgot how triggering Second Nephi 4 was for me. We read this so many times during my mission. Nicknamed Nephi's Psalm.
Yep.
It was my MP's favorite.
Mission President is what MT stands for in the Mormon Church. So
thank you.
You're welcome. I can explain all the jargon.
Hashtag took too much. I'm just saying. Took too much.
Oh my God!
Visions by day, visions by night.
I had visions in my nighttime. I sure did, and they were so vivid. And by day have I waxed bold in mighty prayer before him. Yeah, my voice have I sent up on high, and angels came down and ministered unto me. And upon the wings of his spirit hath my body been carried away upon exceedingly high mountains, because I discovered LSD. And mine eyes have beheld great things, yeah, even too great for man. Therefore I was bidden that I should not write them, because I really didn't understand what the fuck I was seeing and didn't know how to write it down. Oh, then, if I have seen so great things, if the Lord in his condescension unto the children of men hath visited men in so much mercy, why should my heart weep and my soul linger in the valley of sorrow, and my flesh waste away, and my strength slacken because of mine affliction? When the fuck is his flesh wasted away? Really, seriously. This is the man building a boat and fighting his brother. Oh my God. All right, anyway. And why should I yield to sin? Because of my flesh. So no more sex with my wife or anybody else's wife. Okay. Yeah, why should I give way to temptations? Which means he's been looking at somebody else's wife. And that the evil one have placed in my heart to destroy my peace and afflict my soul. Why am I angry? Because of mine enemy, who are my brothers, because they won't listen to me. Awake, my soul, no longer droop in sin. That's his dick. Okay. Rejoice, O my heart, and give place no more for the enemy of my soul. Do not anger again because of mine enemies. Do not slacken my strength because of mine afflictions. Rejoice, O my heart, and cry unto the Lord and say, O Lord, I will praise thee forever. Yeah, my soul will rejoice in thee, my God, and the
Amen.
Amen. Of my salvation. Can I have an amen? Thank you. I need a hallelujah here. Thank
Hallelujah.
You. Oh Lord, wilt thou redeem my soul? Wilt thou deliver me out of the hands of mine enemies? Wilt thou make me that I must shake at the appearance of sin? May the gates of hell be shut continually before me, because that my heart is broken and my spirit is contrite. Oh Lord, wilt thou not shut the gates of thy righteousness before me, that I may walk in the path of the low valley, that I may be strict in the plain road. Oh my God.
Okay, I'm going to give you a break here. Yeah. Garrett Livingston says, where does zombie raptor Jesus come into play in this book? And then Morgan offers $50 and says, and it came to pass that I, Imargan, did send a super chat, speaking down upon Jimmy, telling him that more innuendos are needed for the truthfulness of his flock, and beseecheth him to bring upon them the fullness of his wit. And it was.
I've been given notes lately, and most of those notes are maybe a little less cock, Jimmy. And so I'm trying to deliver a little less cock in these episodes.
And here I'm the one who keeps referencing his dick.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's weird.
Okay.
But yeah, I appreciate
I heard similar comments, but yeah.
All right. O Lord, wilt thou encircle me around in the robe of thy righteousness? O Lord, wilt thou make a way for mine escape before mine enemies? Please, says Joseph, please keep the cops away from me, because they keep arresting me for doing bad things. Wilt thou make my path straight before me? Wilt thou not place a stumbling block in my way, but that thou wouldst clear my way before me, and hedge not up my way, but the ways of mine enemy? Joseph.
Oh, so he's talking about hedging then. You know, he's
right.
talking about his plantaries, you know?
Yeah. Let me get away from all these people that are trying to arrest me or stop me from fucking their daughters. Okay. Oh, Lord, I have trusted in thee, and I will trust in thee forever. I will not put my trust in the arm of flesh, for I know that cursed is he that putteth his trust in the arm of flesh. Yea, cursed is he that putteth his trust in man, or maketh flesh his arm. So if you got a bony arm without any flesh on it, so Luke Skywalker, is that it? Okay. Yeah, I know that God will give liberally to him that asketh. Yeah, my God will give me if I ask not amiss. So as long as I ask for the things that God plans to give me, which means I have to kind of guess, then he'll give me what I ask for. Right. Therefore I will lift up my voice unto thee. Yeah, I will cry unto thee, my God, the rock of my righteousness. Behold, my voice shall forever ascend up unto thee, my rock and mine everlasting God. Amen.
Amen.
Oh,
doesn't that sound like a preacher to you? Like that is like right out of the evangelical handbook.
It is.
Yeah.
I have to ask a single question to Shannon. Somewhere in the book, yes. Is there going to be a fight between Luke Skywalker and Joseph Sith?
Don't we wish? Wouldn't that be so good?
See?
God, I would pay for that.
Duel of
So
Fates.
Well, I noticed a comment in the chat from historical philosopher. It says, at Aronra, serious question for the two ex-Mormons. Two ex-Mormons?
there's 3 of us. Yeah,
There's 4 of us.
4 of us. Well,
Yeah.
that's true. Anyway,
So for the two ex-Mormon, I think everybody else here is more ex-Mormon than me because I never identified as Mormon, but I understand y'all did. So I was never like a believer.
right.
So serious question for the two ex-Mormons. How does anybody actually buy this stuff? I get why people did in the 19th century, but with everything that is known today about history, I don't get it.
It's really the same question you can ask anybody who's deeply immersed in their religion is how do you? And when you're raised from this from birth, like I was, like many of us were, especially I was raised right in the stop. I have a hard time losing the accent once I sorry. But what it's my grandma and anyway, all right.
Yeah, well, that's
my grandma
that's what
from
they say,
Alabama.
getting into character. It
takes a lot to lose it. So, but see, I was raised right in the middle of Utah and in the middle of Mormonism, middle of all. When you're raised from the beginning to believe it's true and to know that God expects you to act on faith, and it gives you these things, but doesn't make it, easy to find, easy to discover. When they tell people to go look for historical, archaeological evidence of the Book of Mormon, and there isn't any, it's like, well, God doesn't want you to have a sure knowledge. He wants you to act on faith. That's what the word of wisdom's about. This is what all of these things are about, is to demonstrate the faith that you have in your leaders, and the leaders will never lead you astray. That's how you buy into it, because it's all part of the cult mindset.
Yeah,
I would venture also the cultural thing, because
while
when I first hear about Sikh beliefs, when I first read about Sikh beliefs, and when I first read about Hindu beliefs, I remember all of these things being just incredibly bizarre. How could you believe something so silly? And then I remembered that my own religion taught me about a talking snake.
Yeah, Hindu had the baby come out of the woman's side. In Hinduism, and in Santa Claus, a lot of people believe in Santa Claus for a certain amount of time, right? And the Scientology, who believes in Scientology? Well, it happens. It's just indoctrination.
And now there's a crazy one.
Yeah.
Scientology isn't quite as dogmatic because it allows all kinds of other things. I mean, it allows you to come in from Christianity and still believe in God somehow, even though that's like not in the Scientology scripture.
It's just as long as you give them money, then it's good.
Yeah. Give us money and power.
Yeah.
There's also okay, sorry, let me gather this. You don't inherently understand the concept of rationality and what is logical and what isn't logical from birth. At some point, it is something that is taught to you, and you can use certain cognitive faculties that are inherent to work through them and make sense of that. And so Mormonism, as a lot of religions do, but they're pretty talented at it, their cognitive dissonance isn't latent. It's active cognitive dissonance. It's literally, we're going to teach you how to dismiss rational things using irrational means, but call it rationality. Because Mormons speak to each other about the obviousness of the truth of their religion as though it is self-evident. It only falls apart when it's challenged from the outside. The number of times I've heard Mormons even who went on missions and started to actually get challenged, and then they say something like, well, I can see why a lot of people have trouble with a lot of things. So at this point, I just feel like if any religion is true, it has to be Mormonism. Otherwise, it's none of them. And it's kind of like, yeah, you're right, except for that none of them is the correct answer, not Mormonism. And so there's just a lot of that shit. It's intercepting a person's understanding of what is and isn't rational and defining it for them and saying, well, this is what rationality is. You see this in the Trump cult. They imagine bragging that you only have beliefs which appeal to common sense. And yet that's what these fuckers do. Mormons too. Common sense well, guess what? A lot of fucking issues are a lot more complex than common sense. You common fucking person.
Right.
So that's why I think people believe it.
Yeah.
Cock.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not only that, like the people in the church, I believe, have really good ways of mental gymnastics, right? So they could be a doctor and understand the scientific method in their field and practice it, but they cannot take that same critical thinking and apply it to their religion. They're stunted in their growth, right? Evolution can be taught differently. They could undermine you in and how they teach you, so that when you get to the point where you're actually of a logical mindset, you
Right.
have all the answers and you're never to question.
That's honestly what happened to me. Is my dad was a detective in the Air Force in their OSI branch, and he learned clearly like very good skepticism there, which he taught to me, and then freaked out when I applied it at church too. It was like, wait, no, you were supposed to stop.
Yeah.
How dare you?
You're not using faith. Oh,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've said many times my dad's biggest mistake was teaching me skepticism, because he would even teach me some at church. Like it would be little lessons. Like he's like, all right, so listen, when somebody gets up and they say that their old mission companion's brother was driving down the road and they saw a sign that says at a church that says, don't read the Book of Mormon, that's how they got you. You're going to notice that this whole like roommate's brother thing just seems close enough to sound true. It's made up. That never happened. Like he would teach me little lessons like that. And it evolved into, okay, Dad, so all these things you taught me, I sort of started questioning your beliefs with them, and they're not holding up.
Right.
Yeah. Scott Weber offers $5 and asks an interesting question. What is the difference between a religion and a cult?
Perspective. But look, so it's probably a spectrum, you could call it. I use the BITE model, which is Stephen Hassan's model, which are these categories of behavior, information, thought, and emotion controls. And then there's these subsets under. There are some cults that are cults because there's one or two things within those categories that they do to the extreme. There are some cults that are more cultish because they do lots of things, is like to a significant amount, but maybe nothing necessarily extreme. And so you get these other things that are just better explained by a group of scared people together figuring shit out. But then, I mean, some of the stuff is literally like, there's also within Mormonism, there's gradients. Like no one is more in the cult than the Mormon missionaries. They are more in the cult than the average member is for those 2 years. And then there's even a gradient of how culty is it place by place. The ward that I went to in Louisiana was far less culty than the ward that I went to in Wyoming. And so all of these things exist on gradients, and even you can say there's regional cults. My family had their own cult. There's the cult with my dad at the top of it, and then that cult is part of the greater Mormon cult and our branch of Mormonism, which we adopted, or you could say almost implicit sect of Mormonism. So it's a complicated question, but you can sort of say like certain organizations hit it more than others. Like the Jehovah's Witnesses actually hit it more than the Mormon Church does, and Scientology more than both of them. Yeah, it's all.
It's a much better answer than I was going to give. You know, a cult is an unpopular religion, and a religion is a very popular cult.
Yeah. That almost gives Mormonism the ability to escape the classification, because even though it's only got, maybe 6 million active members and roughly approaching 20 million registered, it's becoming accepted in society because of certain political movements and figures. So the fact that Mitt Romney almost became president, for example.
The former host of, what was it, The Blaze? I forget his name. I keep forgetting.
Glenn Beck.
Yeah, Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck addressing an audience full of evangelicals.
Yeah. And
he's citing 2nd Nephi for the prophecies, and the evangelicals are eating it up. And I was mystified. How
some evangelicals think he is a prophet, despite knowing that he is a Mormon with a prophet.
Yep.
Okay.
By the way, I'm super happy I was here for this, because I've been wanting to read Nephi's Psalm. I've been wanting to do that so bad. So I'm glad I was here today.
So you wanted to
I guess
read
this
Nephi
is
4?
Yep, I wanted to read that one. So I was like, thank whoever that of all things that my husband got COVID this weekend because I would have missed it.
Well, you're
welcome.
So before we move on to the next one, can you give me a summary explanation of what the hell all of that was?
Basically, all that was is you get to watch Lehi's last hurrah, where he's telling his kids, okay, Nephi's the most important one here. And more important than the rest of you, if you don't follow Nephi, then too bad, so sad. I mean, your seed will stay alive, but whatever. And then he dies, and Nephi gets to take over, and now it's Nephi in charge of his group, and then it'll be laymen in charge of his group, the ones who disagree with Nephi. Basically, that's all it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
And Layman and Lemuel are once again about to try and kill Nephi. We're setting up for that too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
Nephi's a dick.
They need another angel viewership. Like, imagine how big a dick Nephi had to be that on multiple occasions, God and angels and shit are stopping his beatings from his brothers, and they're still like, okay, look, I know last time they were like, bitch, stop hitting your brother, I'll kill you, but I really think we ought to just beat the shit out of him again. I really think we gotta.
Especially that whole, Nephi, rub your feet in the carpet so you can shock them. Yeah. And then say it came from God. Yeah.
I thought it was weird that the angel said bitch. That's fucking nuts.
I know.
So we got a good hour left, and we got 2 Nephi 5. Who wants to read that?
I certainly can.
All right.
Go for it.
Have at it.
Sorry that I don't have Jesus Christ's beautiful baritone. Verse 1, behold, it came to pass that I, Nephi, did cry much unto the Lord my God because of the anger of my brethren. But behold, their anger did increase against me, insomuch that they did seek to take away my life. Yeah.
They're so mean to me. Yes.
They did murmur against me, saying, our younger brother thinks... Wait, I want to do the layman voice from Living Scriptures. Our younger brother thinks to rule over us, and we have had much trial because of him. Wherefore now let us slay him, that we may not be afflicted more because of his words. For behold, who says for behold in casual conversation, by the way?
Right.
We will not have him to be our ruler, for it belongs to us who are the elder brethren to rule over this people. Now I do not write upon these plates all the words which they murmured against me, but it sufficeth me to say that they did seek to take away my life.
Yeah, I think you need to switch the voices, because Nephi's the whiny bitch here.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true, but... He's the author. He decided, I think. He sounds very noble and bold, and Layman sounds like a little bitch. It suffice. I like, too, that he's not going to say all of the words, which just, to me, makes me think that, like, they successfully hit some of his insecurities. And then they were like, hey, why you got hips like a hippo? And I was like, what the fuck? You know I'm sensitive about that. How dare you? It suffices me just to say they wanted to kill me. That sufficeth. Stop pushing on it.
I can't think of anything else. In other words, that's what Joseph is really dealing with there. I can't think of anything else to come up with that are good insults. And Oliver told me to get on with it because we're taking too fucking long.
I don't have hippo hips. And it came to pass that the Lord did warn me that I, Nephi, should depart from them and flee into the wilderness, and all those who would go with me.
You know what? You're such an asshole. I need you to get out of there because I'm not going to protect you from these guys. They have a point. You are sick of you.
It's like when your therapist finally confronts you, and it's just like, all right, Jimmy, you've been here a lot, and I just got to tell you, I think I can now safely say to you, you should consider whether you're the root of a lot of your problems. Because I'm hearing the stories you're telling me, and this seems like a you thing. Wherefore it came to pass that I know that sounded like a really specific example, and get off the fuck my back. Wherefore
I
it
didn't
came to
think that a lot.
No, not at all.
It's like Jimmy's quoting something, a memory or some shit.
Wow. You're just so
Wherefore,
smart, Jimmy. Okay.
wherefore it came to pass that I, Nephi, did take my family, and also Zoram and his family, and Sam, mine elder brother, and his family, and Jacob and Joseph, my younger brethren, and also my sisters, and all those who would go with me, and our dog Fido, and our dog Fido's stuffed toy, which we called Hector. Kind of is a funny little aside because Hector used to bully us when we were younger. And he's just going, it's just listing here.
Yeah.
And our
But
dog
see,
humps the
here, stop
shit
for a
out of
second,
Hector.
stop. What I'm wondering about here, because his sisters all married the sons of Ishmael,
Yes.
but he's taken the sisters with him, and sons of Ishmael are staying with Laman.
Well, I think some of the daughters of Ishmael are with Laman and Lemuel.
Well, that would be Nephi, Sam, and Zoram's wives, in other words. Stayed with Laman and Lemuel.
Well, no, Laman and Lemuel also married a couple of Ishmael daughters, right?
They did. But he's talking
Yeah.
about his sisters, Nephi's sisters, who married the sons of Ishmael.
Oh,
because
right,
they
right.
were all partnered up. So he's taken his sisters away from their husbands.
Right. Which who knows how many, they could have had 30 sisters and they would have never mentioned it.
No,
it's like,
they just
oh, right,
all-
right. That's
they
right.
all
Nephi.
love each other. Yeah.
I just
Nephi
got a
had
comment
sisters.
from Tsunami, who says, "I'm Jimmy's psychiatrist. Can confirm."
Well, first of all, just so you know, your psychiatrist is who manages your medication levels. And is not the person who would confront you. That's the person who gives you drugs. Second of all, I'm certain I will have just started a lot of people speculating, and you'll be surprised to find out if I'm quoting anything, the time period I'm quoting from ain't the one you think it is. Anyway, I got 99 problems and my therapist ain't one.
Continue, please.
Okay, we're
And all
anyway.
those who would go with me.
Right, we were on the list. And then there was Todd and Bobby, and all those who would go with me were those who believed in the warnings and the revelations of God, wherefore they did hearken unto my words. And we did take our tents and whatsoever things were possible for us, and did journey in the whatsoever things were possible. And yeah, I stole Laban's wallet, but whatever. And did journey in the wilderness for the space of many days. And after we had journeyed for the space of many days, we did pitch our tents. Wait, they didn't pitch the tents for days? Where did they sleep?
Which
before
tent
that?
are they talking about?
Well, that's that too, but I said I'd do less cock stuff.
Yeah, but he took the sisters with. This is Joseph Smith writing it.
Yeah, and I took Marcia, Jen, and Cindy.
Yeah.
Are these not tents that is this like you don't pitch your tent until you're staying in a place for a while? I'm just curious about this. Did you journey for several days straight and not stop to sleep?
I think that's really what he's trying to say here because, it's Joseph's way.
He had to run real fast to get away.
Yeah, Joseph knows how to run away.
I get the impression that these people were just really comfortable with sleeping on the ground.
Yeah.
I guess so. And we did power ourselves not with coffee, for we're not evil pieces of shit.
Because we're Mormons. We don't do coffee anymore. No.
And my
Mormon
people
Skeptic says taking wives away from their husbands seems pretty on point for a book by Joe Smith.
Yes. Bingo.
Hey, Mormon Skeptic, did you have you tried coffee yet? I'd like to know that. Mormon Skeptic has been deconstructing. When we began this series, Mormon Skeptic was still at least a foot left in the church, and now his shelf has broken.
Morgan
so
says
curious.
pitch your tent has something to do with erections.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of redundant.
And historical philosopher wants to know if these people are like Nephi, supposed to be Native Americans. Yes, they are, according to Mormonism. They are supposed to be the Native Americans, even though Thomas Murphy, back 20 years ago, gave proof, DNA proof that they are not.
Right.
And
You're okay. That anti-Mormon Thomas Murphy famously excommunicated for his work in the DNA stuff.
No, they didn't. They were going to.
They
were
threatened
going
it.
to.
Yeah.
Oh my God. This is the man. I'm just going to bring him up by name because this is somebody who helped me with leaving. But he did a study into the mitochondrial DNA, not only of the Native Americans around in New York, but also of animals and all this other stuff. As a believing Mormon trying to, give proof of the Book of Mormon, but what he found was there's no Jewish ancestry at all in him. And so he published it in a peer-reviewed publication on this kind of thing. The church said, hey, you have to not say that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, no, I can't deny this. This is the science. This is what the science says. And they're like, no, if you do not change that to say it does prove the Book of Mormon claims are true, then we will excommunicate you. And he's like, nope. And so he refused to make it easy for him. And the publicity got big enough that the church backed down, because they do that when the PR is bad enough. And he just kept it in there. And they brought in their own DNA specialist, spent 6 years trying to prove Thomas Murphy's science was wrong, and were completely unable to do so. So now the church is rolling back from their claims of them being Israelite the ancestors.
The DNA was diluted, because that's how DNA works, right?
Yeah.
You just add a little water and boom, right. the Jew DNA goes away. Boom,
right.
Done.
Boom. Yeah, he found more Asian than he found anything else. But yeah, so I'm glad that he brought this up, because that is a big deal about the Book of Mormon, and the church is slowly rolling back from that. They've changed the introduction to the Book of Mormon now and stuff like that.
And they will say that is the apologetic. They do. I have heard them say that the DNA was diluted, and that's why we don't have evidence of it anymore. Mm-hmm. And that is not how DNA works. So
nope, it is absolutely not. And that's the other thing that's been done, is proven how incorrect that statement is. So yeah. Anyway,
Skeptic answers your question, by the way, says, I love coffee.
It's so good.
Yay, so do I.
And my people would that we should call the name of the place Aladdin, wherefore we did call it Aladdin. Okay, maybe no one gets that joke. Has anyone seen The Dictator, where the main character, he's like the king of some fictitious country, and he starts naming everything he likes Aladdin, and so everything is Aladdin, and then he names the word positive for Aladdin, but then also, because negative test results are a good thing, that negative also becomes Aladdin, and so they're like, I'm sorry, your herpes test came back Aladdin, and they're like, yay, and then it just shakes its head. Anyway, it's just that joke, naming it Aladdin. Everything is, but it's Nephi. They named the place Nephi, and they called it Nephi. And all those who were with me to take upon to them to call themselves the people of Nephi. And we did observe to keep the judgments and the statutes and the commandments of the Lord in all things according to the law of Moses.
Now, the law of Moses, this is like the only place that I remember it being phrased. So this would, of course, this doesn't make any sense, because the law of Moses would be keeping Passover, right? Mm-hmm. And part of keeping Passover is like you have to have horseradish, you have to have a shank bone, which is usually a lamb bone, right? And there's no lambs in the New World, right? Hard-boiled eggs, onions, parsley. It doesn't make any sense at all.
None. But this is Mormonism.
I'm seeing comments, but and the comments remind me of a joke that Emo Phillips said, he can't get started without that first piping hot pot of coffee. Mm-hmm. Oh, I've had other enemas.
Can you do the voice at all?
It wouldn't be funny if I did the voice.
Okay. He's iconic. I wonder what his real voice must sound like, because that can't be it.
I met him. He was pretty good at keeping in character.
But Gilbert Gottfried was the same way. Almost no one knew Gilbert Gottfried's voice was fake until after he died. He sounds somewhat British when he drops it. Yeah.
Wow. That's who you need to do for Nephi's voice, Gilbert Gottfried.
It takes too much. It's too many verses and it's too long. I've gone with a voice here that I can sustain for 30 verses or whatever it is. And it puts everybody to sleep. So
yes, it does.
It's anybody having sleeping troubles like I am. And the Lord was with us, and we did prosper exceedingly, for we did sow seed, and we did reap again in abundance. And we began to raise flocks and herds and animals of every kind.
What animals? What animals?
List them, you cowards.
Because you didn't take any with you. God.
That's true. Yeah.
Somehow they raised animals of every kind.
Of every kind. Right.
That's right. Everything that you can just find in the U.S. wild and
brought stuff.
Are they in the U.S. or are they in South America?
Who knows?
Well, that's to be debated. But as a kid, you're gonna grow up assuming they're in the U.S. It'll be introduced to you in your teenage years that this may be more Central and South America as they start lying to you about what Mayan temples were used for.
Right. And you're also, especially because the prophets of the church in the last few decades have been very clear to point out that the promised land spoken of in the Book of Mormon and everything else is the United States. It's not Canada. It's not Central or South America. It is the United fucking States.
Unless, of course, in the future we invade Canada or Central and South America and that becomes an extension of the United States.
Sure, why the fuck not?
Yeah, we'd say it's the white one, but then it's even weirder that Canada's not involved.
Yeah.
That's a pretty white place.
It says Law of Moses is mentioned several times, but like in Mosiah, it is only talking about the 10 Commandments.
Yep, that's all that Joseph meant when he talks about the Law of Moses. Yeah.
Do they not ever mention Book of Mormon populations observing like Jewish holidays and stuff?
It's very briefly, but nothing like what you get in the Bible. Not anything with the sacrifices and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because at some point Joseph went, "Fuck, I didn't go to Hebrew school. Am I gonna make this shit up?
I don't remember any of it. God."
You know what a real Jew would care about is missing.
These people raising animals of every kind. I mean, like they have every variety of penguin. They've got all the camels. They have the Brazilian a rainbow boa. They've got
elephants,
mammoths,
giraffes,
a platypus. Joseph, should we include the Jewish holidays? I think I'd rather pass over. It's a sad life. And I, Nephi, had also brought the records which were engraven upon the plates of brass, and also my balls or compass, the ball or compass, which was prepared for my father by the hand of the Lord, according to that which is written. And it came to pass that we began to prosper exceedingly and to multiply in the land. And I, way to brag about getting laid, my guy. And I, Nephi.
Yeah, I just want to point out. This is over a period of like 20 years. And theoretically, they build spoiler alert, they build a new temple, Solomon's temple here in the New World. And Solomon Temple, if you read First Kings 5 or something like that, it says they used 70,000 slaves to make Solomon's temple. And here, Nephi is theoretically creating this simple and with all these children that he kidnapped from Ishmael, right? Like, hey, I need you to be my slave and you to be my slave, and we're going to make another temple in a period of 20 years.
Well, though, don't forget, Nephi has the priesthood. And with the priesthood, you can move mountains.
That's right.
So that's really how he
pulls out his staff and
I'm just thinking, like, if at 21 I had a group of people and I was like, I want to build a community only built upon this group of people multiplying, you'd still only be up to like 24 people 20 years later, and half of them would be infants. Yeah. Right. Like, the fuck is going on here?
See,
Mormon skeptic says, Nephi says, we raised animals of every kind. Others said, like what? Nephi said, every kind. Others said, like. Nephi said, every kind.
Stop asking.
And then Amargan says, I'd like to take a submarine 8,000 miles for a camel.
That's later. We're not there yet.
We haven't done the submarine.
Well, I'm confused. How the fuck did they get over here from Israel?
It's later and earlier. The Tower of Babel falls, but we're going to read about it later. And then they're literally like, you know what we need? Submarines.
We need submarines. Yep. Nephi had a boat with sails and all that shit, but the Jaredites, who have to bring animals,
had more advanced technology than later.
So they are going to have these submarine boats with animals and bees and
So I'm
All that
wondering,
shit.
if Joseph Smith is writing this book, and then he finds out
Really good.
that submarines had just been invented.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because the first submarine was invented right after he started writing this. And so does he just like,
That's where he
Okay,
came
for
up
the
with it.
record, we're using submarines in a facetious way. They basically looked like almonds. They were made of wood, and they had a hole on the top and bottom that you could remove if you needed to, but they would
Yeah.
go under
They-
the water and travel under the water.
They had a plug in them that
Yeah.
wouldn't get pushed out by
Tied
the
onto
water
a dish.
at all, and
A
the whole
cork.
ship
He
was tied onto like a
You
dish.
put a
yes.
cork in it is literal in this book.
Yes, it's literally
I
that.
just like that. Apparently, in the 1800s, if you needed a metaphor for tight, you went with a dish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a shit ton of
Tight
tight
like a
dishes.
dish.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Ivory
You guys
Darkness
didn't even
says-
have Tupperware back then.
Ivory Darkness says there's a reason time skips are a thing in writing, to skip boring parts. Jacob, Enos, Jarub, and Omni are mercifully short, but unnecessary.
True.
You can
Yes.
replace 4 books with 435 years later.
Yes, especially because in Omni, you've got all of this. Hi, I'm Omni, and I got the records, and I'm giving them to so and so says, "Hi, I'm
Which-
so and so, and I have the records, and I'm giving them to him and that, and all this stuff." And you got like 27 people in there that they pass through over a couple hundred years because everybody's just too fucking busy to write anything down.
Right. What didn't one of them, isn't there weirdly a detail where one of them's like, and I'm writing this because I'm told I'm supposed to, but I really don't give a fuck.
Yes, I think there's
Yeah,
like one or
Which
two.
one
of
is
them.
that?
I
Yeah,
can't
they're
remember.
like, and
It's
by the
stupid.
way, the church probably isn't true. Like,
Right.
they don't say that, but it's almost like, come on, guys. It's-
Which
He had
it all
writer's
makes-
block that day, okay? He just
Right.
wanted you to get over it.
yeah.
What
What is
makes me
chaos?
laugh about this is like so many people in their journals who feel like they have to keep it regular, and they're like, "Oh shit, I haven't written for 2 years." So, okay, in the month of July of 2019, I was fine. In the month of August 2019, I dealt with the heat. That's what that section is. It doesn't, nobody thinks, oh, why do we even have this? If there was an actual prophet Mormon going through and giving a synopsis of this, why would he think that was a thing to put in if he's limited in space? No, this makes no sense. This is just Joseph saying, okay, we gotta count for 400 years or whatever. Fuck. So
so put on your TBM hat and just figure out how to start the sentence with, all right, here's how it actually proves it more true. And then figure out what they would say next.
Well, I can tell you exactly what we'd say, because this is what I used to say, is that the history of what was going on was on the other place. This is the part for the religious stuff, for the spiritual stuff. And these men who were writing these sections were so focused on the wars and other shit going on. Well, I didn't use the word shit. The wars, the other things going on historically that weren't part of the church, but they realized they needed to say something spiritual in there. So they're just passing it down to show there's always been a holder of the records and a prophet. That's what we would say.
By the way, we are 2 verses away from one of the most iconic ex-Mormon verses, because it's sort of it's one of the like, oh shit, they're not even trying to pretend this book is true. We're getting real close to one of those.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
call
go.
my
Let's
attention
continue.
to that when we get there. In the meantime, a couple more chats. Wanted Chaos 2033, $10. Thank you. Glad to catch Joseph's Myth live. Tried to catch the Sunday show, Jimmy, but it came to pass.
That's all right. You can watch it in playback, so it all works.
And then
Just
it was
to
a
be
good
able to
show.
Say that it came to pass is the reason to miss it.
It was a
Just
really
to-
good show. A lot of Theist callers this week. It's great.
And Deborah Grace says the ships and submarines are all good, but iron chariots are God's kryptonite.
Yeah, keep that in
Yep.
mind. Keep that in mind as we approach some of these fucking verses.
Yep.
And I, Nephi, did take the sword of Laban, and after the manner of it did make many swords, lest by any means the people who were now called Lamanites should come upon us and destroy us. For I knew their hatred towards me and my children, and those were called my people. And this is one of the Second Amendment verses Mormons love. And I did teach my people to build buildings and to work in, this is the anachronism verse. to build buildings and to work in all manner of wood and of iron and of copper and of brass and of steel and of gold and of silver and of precious ores which were in great abundance.
In South America.
In South America.
Or North America or Central America,
You don't know.
600 BC. It doesn't
the
even matter
Bronze Age.
where. Right. Yes. Yes. Yes.
They're wielding steel in the
Yeah.
Bronze
The
Age.
Bronze Age and
For
gold.
sure. And
And
since
gold.
he's never done it before, he can do it now because he looked at a sword and said, "Oh, I know how to make this now."
By the way,
Yeah.
they're working in all manners of wood, and then they're like, write our books down on gold.
Yeah,
yeah.
sure, why
Well,
not?
How
Okay.
do you know that Nephi didn't train with some Japanese swordsmith?
That's right. When did he go there during their 8 years in the wilderness? Did he just sort of disappear to
Yeah,
Japan
it
for
was
a
the
bit?
ocean. You didn't hear that part? He boated over to Japan, picked
Yeah.
up some steel
Ah,
and his bow, and then brought it over. I mean, that's got to be it, right?
right. That's right. He had the Liahona telling him where to go.
The middle
Did
of the
you-
blade folded 2,000 times.
Aaron, when you brought that challenge, did you feel the urge to throw your arm up into the square? You're casting
to.
out our demons over here.
Got to do that. Yeah.
In the name of Jesus Christ.
Got to do your thumb right. The only way it works, let me see.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And to the right spot where you can see it. There you go. You have to have fingers close together, thumb extended, and your arm at the square. That is
Yeah.
the sign.
This is the least intimidating position we could come up with.
Yeah. Until we go and show you how to slice your neck with it.
That's right. That's true. And I, Nephi, did build a
sign, By the
temple.
way, in case you're wondering, that's one of the temple things.
Yeah.
That's one of those that I could get in serious trouble from the modern day Danites for just giving that right now.
I feel like somebody needs to remake the temple ceremony in the style of those like patty cake, baker's man, slice my neck as fast as you can, some shit like
There
that.
you go.
I think that works good. And I, Nephi, did build a temple, and I did construct it after the manner of the temple of Solomon, save it were not built of so many precious things, for they were not to be found upon the Wait, you just said gold and silver and precious ores were in great abundance, and then the next verse you were like, wasn't as precious as Solomon because we couldn't find precious shit anywhere. What were you looking for, my guy? It wasn't the gold and silver and precious ores?
It was sapphires and emeralds. He couldn't find those. Yeah.
We were using the lithium in our iPads. What do you expect?
Yeah.
You found
That's
a great
right.
abundance of Play-Doh.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to start asking ex-Mormons about, I'm going to be like, what about the iPads in the Book of Mormon? That's an anachronism. What are you talking about? Verse 16, guy. For they were not to be found upon the land, wherefore it could not be built like unto Solomon's temple. But the manner of the construction was like unto the temple of Solomon, and the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine for a bunch of idiots who've now lived most of their life in the woods and have no carpentry skills whatsoever, or
But
stone
hey,
cutting, or whatever else.
I can
And
tell you,
child
it
slave labor right
was
there.
fine. What I did was fine. Yes, that's what he's saying.
I just like to think like I have you ever known somebody who's made something that's truly shit and they just stand by it? And I'm wondering if that's what's going on here. They've got like the ugliest tree fort ever made, and they're like, Temple of Solomon did a pretty good job, if I do say so. Sure, it's not as precious as the real thing, but goddamn.
You gotta say precious right.
Complete with the no girls allowed sign on it.
Gotta have that. Yeah.
Gotta have it. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, did cause my people to be industrious and to labor with their hands. And it came to pass that they would that I should be their king. But I, Nephi, was desirous that they should have no king. Nevertheless, I did for them according to that which was in my power.
So basically, he's saying, George Washington was somebody to look up to, and he refused to be king. So we're going to put that in here too, because that's a cool thing.
I think it was more, why be a king when I can be a fascist?
Yeah.
And behold, the words of the Lord had been fulfilled unto my brethren, which he spake concerning them, that I should be their ruler and their teacher. Wherefore I had been their ruler and their teacher, according to the commandments of the Lord, until the time they sought to take away my life.
Which time?
Yeah, right.
There was like
the last
7
one.
of them. Yeah.
It was the last one. Wherefore, the last one where they were so mad that they were definitely about to murder him, and they only had time to take everything with them.
Right.
When
they were
ran.
going to be, and Daddy wasn't there to stop them.
No, you packed the big suitcase. We got time. Wherefore the word of the Lord was fulfilled, which he spake unto me, saying that inasmuch as they will not hearken unto thy words, they shall be cut off from the presence of the Lord. And behold, they were cut off from his presence. And
Of course,
he had caused.
when you think about it too, it's like he had enough time to take the damn sword with him. If his brothers were trying to kill him, they would have taken the sword first.
Y'all ready for the racism?
Way? Yes.
Yeah, here we go. Hashtag
Is this the
definitely
single
not a
most?
racist.
Yeah, hashtag not a racist. Hashtag not all Josephs. Hashtag not a cult. Is this the most racist verse in the Book of Mormon? You decide, and we've got a lot to go. And he
it's
had
the
caused.
First of them. Yeah.
And he had caused the cursing to come upon them, yea, even a sore cursing because of their iniquity. For behold, they had hardened their hearts against him, that they had become like unto a flint. Wherefore, as they were white and exceedingly fair and delightsome, that they might not be enticing unto my people, the Lord God did cause a skin of blackness to come upon them.
Yeah. Now,
I almost wanted to read it as Bane.
Mormons say, the church leadership is trying to roll back on this and roll back on the racism. But the most that they will do is change the intros written by Bruce R. McConkie. They have not and will not change these verses themselves. Doesn't matter that there's been 10,000 changes to the Book of Mormon since the very first printing. Doesn't matter. They change big things in the Book of Mormon. Not just punctuation, not just spelling. They've changed actual doctrinal things in the fucking Book of Mormon. They're not going to take out the racism because racism is what is in this church now. This church is a white supremacist church, and people need to remember that. It is still to this day a church of white supremacy.
They would add to skin of blackness before they'd take away. It would be like, no. Okay, it's skin of blackness, but they also grew rhino horns and giant feet things. They would change the caricature and be like, they actually became like little monsters.
But
before they would take that away.
The most popular song in the Book of Mormon stage play is I believe that in 1978 God changed his mind about black people.
Well, remember, this isn't technically black people. This is the dark skin on indigenous people, which some Mormons will say, no, indigenous people don't have the curse of blackness. Their skin would be literally black if they had the curse of blackness. They just have their now indigenous skin. Black people from Africa, their curse comes from Cain, and the thing that God changed his mind about was whether or not they should have the priesthood in 1978.
Yeah. That's
keep your racist curses in order. God, Aaron. It's like you don't even care about being racist.
On that note, historical philosopher says, wait, weren't the Europeans the first to bring steel to the New World? And that was in the 15th century?
That is true.
Yes. And this is something else Thomas Murphy has talked about, is that during the time Joseph Smith was alive and doing all this, people were discovering Native American graves all the time, right around there in his area. And one thing that would happen that the Europeans would do is they would gift, weapons and all that shit to the Native Americans at the time. And so they would be buried with these swords and with all of those things as a tribute to the person who had died, and the stuff they would take with them into the afterlife and all that shit. And so to Joseph Smith, he's like, oh, well, see, these graves had those in them. So therefore that means this. And so, that's where
the historical philosopher says also Didn't the Mormon Church not allow blacks to join the cult until later 70s?
No, they could join. They could be baptized, but that was all. They couldn't go to the temple. The men couldn't hold the priesthood. None of that stuff until 1978.
They couldn't go even through the rear entrance?
Nope. So things like there was one woman who really desperately wanted to, a black woman in the early part of the church. She wanted so badly to be able to go to the temple. And finally what happened is, this was during Brigham Young's time, I believe, is somebody else had to do it though, even though she was still alive. A white woman had to go in and do this, but sealed her as a servant to Joseph Smith, as a slave to Joseph, an eternal slave to him. Yeah,
a black woman is an eternal slave to Joseph Smith in the afterlife.
Yeah. So she couldn't go through and do it herself. And she was so grateful for it, because that's the way they made her think, is that this was such a wonderful thing to have happened to her.
She signed herself up for perpetual, eternal servitude.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is for heaven.
Okay, so here's the thing. So does every woman in the church. Hers was just a little worse. But that's technically just being a woman.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can't.
Yeah, well, you're and it's
women
not just Mormons either, because I mean, the women in the Quran actually get it a lot worse.
Yeah.
I don't know, because the women in the Quran, there's no heavenly thing about. This is some of the more ancient Mormon lore, and so it depends on who you are whether you adhere to this. But if we're talking original Joseph Smith bullshit, you in the afterlife as a woman are going to be popping out eternal babies nonstop. That whole gathering the intelligence to create spirits, that's through a like literal physical fucking and delivery in the afterlife. So it kind of depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah, well, in the Quran, women, your wives get to just the wives you had in life are still your wives in the afterlife. But now they get to wait in turn, because not only was that not the only wife that you likely had, they not only have to wait in turn with the other wives, what they call sister wives, but they also have to wait in line behind your newly awarded sex robots.
You know, that's not super far off, because polygamy is a heavenly thing too. And it's like, and there are definitely people who, because they weren't married. So there's supposed to be a large abundance of women in the celestial kingdom without husbands. And the husbands, I think, are going to do it like dodgeball. It's going to be like you, and you. And I will always be picked last.
It's the same in the millennium too, is that whole 7 women will go to one man saying, please, please, take away our shame for not being married and not having children. Give us your name and we'll provide our own clothing and food.
And of course the why women cannot get into heaven without a man.
Ross, that plus the other problem, there's that for sure. Yes, and that is a big deal. But the other big deal is you are worthless if you are not a mother. So a woman without children is not worth as much as a woman with children.
You know,
that's the important thing there too.
You know how if somebody jinxes you and you can't speak until they say your name? That's literally how women get into heaven.
That's right. You have to call their name.
Yeah. You have to call their
name. Our temple name. We don't get to know our husband's name. You're never told your husband's name.
You're jinxed.
You never get it. But he has told yours. And every woman who went through the temple on that day, as well as any other day that, the one day each year that your name was done, all have the same temple name. So
I'm thinking of the jinx
when your husband goes out there calling out your name, and especially if, like with my husband, because my name was Judith, but my husband kept thinking it was Ruth. And I was like, I could just see what would happen. He'd be up there going, Ruth, none of you are my Ruth. Oh, well, I'll just take 5 of you,
I guess I'll go on to heaven without you.
Yeah.
You know when you jinx somebody and you keep almost saying their name just to fuck with them? Like, Judith. You thought fuck you for eternity.
Yes.
Deborah Grace says, make America great again and America first are mottos of this K's group. Not to get too political, but if I'm not mistaken, Mormons are a big supporter of those mottos.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Mormons are super KKK like. I'm just saying there are Mormons with pointed hoods in their wardrobe. But hashtag not all Mormons.
Right. But they like the Make America Great Again stuff,
That's true.
all that stuff, because they're very much Republican. And in fact, during the 70s and 80s especially, they still would say you cannot be a good Mormon and be a Democrat. But
I mean, they think the Constitution was divinely inspired. They think that our best days.
Christopher Columbus was.
Right.
Yeah.
They think our best days was sort of 1776-ish.
And whoever gets elected to the office of president is who God wants in there. So you gotta support him, except when he was black.
Right.
Except what I was just going to say.
They don't like Mitt Romney much anymore.
They definitely didn't have that opinion when it was Obama.
No, but he was black. See, that's the problem.
I don't think they're thinking it's so much for Biden though either at this point. Then again, they also I mean, the number of times I've heard a Mormon say Biden is just Obama 2.0, where they're like, we figured out a way to make race to dismiss this guy too.
And there's always an excuse when it's a Democrat. There's always one. And so when it's a Republican, there's excuses for why he needs to be there. But when it's a Democrat, it's a different story.
Morgan says, doesn't that mean that you get all the mothers-in-law too to deal with?
Yes. But
I mean, in Joseph's case, I think sometimes he's also smashing the mother-in-laws. So
yes, he was. There were a few of his wives that were a mother and daughter, and he didn't care about age, old or young. I think the youngest was 14 with him, but. The thing too, though, is remember women don't have a voice in this church. So yeah.
And they're not supposed to have one in the Bible either.
Nope.
If anything, I think he liked the older women because he didn't have to secretly have their babies aborted.
No. Well, he did that with all of them. He liked the older ones because they knew what they were doing. I mean, it's fun to go after the virgins too, but yeah.
I used to think that, and then I decided to explore it. That's mostly a myth.
Yeah. I think it's more like just any time his dick twitched, he decided that's who it was.
More background, I guess.
All right.
Where what was the last
22. 22.
And thus saith the Lord, I will cause that they shall be loathsome unto thy people. That's a rough word. Loathsome unto thy people. Save they shall repent of their iniquities. And cursed shall be the seed of him that mixeth with their seed.
Yeah, don't have sex with the black people.
But okay, keep in mind, that's not the words he used. He's literally and this was true in the 1800s, and then it pops up in obviously the civil rights era big time. They kept the term mix in there because it's all like the racist shit is so heavily in the whole concept of mixing and mixing the races and all that shit. Like mix at this point is already a giant red flag. And they're still saying, don't mix them seeds.
Yep. We still heard it in the 80s. I graduated high school in 1985 and they were still saying, do not marry somebody of another race.
Yeah. Which is hilarious because they had a 40-year anniversary celebration in 2018 of the 1978 decision. When that wasn't when they stopped being ricist fucks.
They still are racist fucks. They've never stopped.
I got the same thing. In 1995-ish, I was advised as well by my bishop, you shouldn't marry someone outside your race. And the excuse they gave was because it makes marriage, which is already hard, even harder.
Yeah.
So when I was born, the marriage that I have now would have been illegal. Now, my wife is half white, essentially, German and English and so forth. The other half, she has Vietnamese, she has Chinese. But if you have any degree of not white, you're not white.
Right.
Is the tradition, apparently. So somehow being 50-50 means you're all of that other thing.
Yes.
Because white is the most easy color to dilute, I guess, especially when you're really concerned about purity. But my point is that how would you know what is your race, what is another race? There's no distinction.
No.
No,
And
even
Discernment.
Darwin noted that the
Oh, yes.
experts of his time, he wrote this beautiful thing about it, that he's just ripping apart all of the other anthropologists of his day, because they all believe in different races, but nobody can tell how many races there are or how to tell the difference.
I think, Aaron, they just relied on good old fashioned stereotypes back then.
Yes, they relied on
that's-
what the color of your skin was, and there is story after story after story of people going in wanting to get their not temple recommend, but their well, that too, but things like their patriarchal blessing, which is Mormon tarot cards, and if they had darker skin, then the patriarch would say they were of the house of Cain, kind of thing, or instead of being of the tribe of Ephraim. But there would be some going in who would have, say, a black parent and a white parent, but their skin was so light colored that the patriarch didn't know. And so they'd be like, oh, you're part of the tribe of Ephraim. And, those kind of things. And all of it had to do with what color their skin was, had nothing to do with their actual ancestry. It's just, do you look white enough to be part of this church? If so, then yes, you can join.
Phobos says, for being divinely inspired, the Constitution doesn't mention the Abrahamic God Yahweh once,
Nope.
nor is the supposed divine avatar / son Jesus.
Nope. They said,
Mormon Skeptic adds, it says, Joe liked the older women because they could help recruit the younger ones.
True.
Yep, and they did.
And it's funny how human trafficking often works that way.
Yep.
Okay, and then let's see, Rosina Keller gives $99.99. Thank you very much. Says Joseph Smith either takes forever to say nothing, or he writes things steeped in anti-Semitism or racism. What a model for the youngins.
Yes, Joseph Smith definitely was corrupting children when he wasn't fucking them.
Yes, for sure.
Want to make sure we include that he's a fucking pedo as often as we can.
Yep. And one thing that you'll hear a lot of Exmos say, and TBMs are going, they will say, no, it's not at all the same, is Warren Jeffs is the closest copy to Joseph Smith in modern times. Absolute closest. He's exactly like him.
That was an incredibly creepy individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, Warren Jeffs, though, has the only enigma of being like, Joseph was at least meant to be youthful and maybe good looking, and fucking Warren Jeffs looks like an old fucking empty bag of shit. That guy has never looked good. I don't know what appeal he was using for his crowd work.
A lot of it has to do with how much charisma they have, and that's not always tied to looks.
Yeah. But it can be undermined by looks is what I'm saying, and I don't know how Jeffs wasn't.
Mormon Skeptic throws out, missionaries were encouraged to ask prospective members for family pictures to see if there were any African features.
Yep.
Yep. And are you confirming this?
I'm wondering what the African features they were looking for was. Because again, I was only kind of joking when I said probably stereotypes.
They are stereotypes. The larger lips is a big one. The nose, of course, darker skin, those three things, but the lips especially
would have been the things they were associating.
Which I'm like, so what do you do about people who, Botox their lips to look like, say, Angelina Jolie or something? Yeah.
I just go with, what do you do about just not being a fucking racist shitbag of a church?
Yeah.
Rosina Keller says the rule was not one drop of Negro blood.
Yep.
Consequences of that was a lot of people near the Trail of Tears would rather claim they had Native American ancestors than black ones.
Yes.
Yep, that is true.
They'd rather say they have Lamanite blood. Yeah.
And
I like when you see
Brigham Young was notoriously racist, right?
My God, yeah.
He would kill you if you had sex with a black man.
Yeah. He had things like they would be lacing flour with broken glass and poisons and different things like that to give to the Native American tribes. I was under his orders. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He would murder women and children, and then he'd blame it on the Native Americans.
Yeah, like Mountain Meadows Massacre was done that way.
In court. He'd do it under oath.
And because he's prophet, he could do whatever the fuck he wanted.
Funny that my Mormon family never taught me that.
No, they don't.
Okay, we got 15 minutes. Let's get through the rest of
yeah.
this.
And because of their cursings which was upon them, they did become an idle people, full of mischief and subtlety, and did seek in the wilderness for beasts of prey. I mean, I don't think I have to further explain. They're saying the black people were mischievous lazies.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the Lord God said unto me, they shall be a scourge unto thy seed, to stir them up in remembrance of me. And inasmuch as they will not remember me and hearken unto my words, they shall scourge them even unto destruction. And it came to pass that I, Nephi, did consecrate Jacob and Joseph, that they should be priests and teachers over the land of my people. And it came to pass that we lived after the manner of happiness, and 30 years had passed from the time we left Jerusalem. And I, Nephi, had kept the records upon my plates, which I had made of my people thus far. Excuse me, a little gas buildup there from reading this garbage.
560 BCE then is how we can time that.
And it came to pass that the Lord God said unto me, make other plates, and thou shalt engraven many things upon them which are good in my sight, for the profit of thy people. Wherefore I, Nephi, to be obedient to, and it's I like the idea of him sort of slightly mocking the voice of God when he's saying it. Ooh, go do it. Wherefore I, Nephi, to be obedient to the commandments of the Lord, went and made these plates upon which I have engraven things. You know, the most productive way of writing an allegory, fucking engraving by hand. And I engraved that which is pleasing unto God, and if my people are pleased with the things of God, they will be pleased with mine engravings, which are upon these plates. Mine engravings was the sequel to Mein Kampf. And if my people desire to know the more particular part of the history of my people, they must search mine other plates. And it sufficeth me to say that 40 years had passed away, and we had already had wars and contentions with our brethren. Now we have 12 minutes to do whatever the fuck we want. I didn't
By the
pause
way,
for shit.
Our
Mine
kingdom passes
engraving.
are like way behind. We're like at 13 or 14 at this point.
Mine engravings. That's what you would tell women to get them into your room, right? Hey, you want to come see mine engravings?
Yeah.
I have mine engravings of my dog, of mine dog.
I'm a good drawer.
Yeah. I'm something. Yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Give me a quick summary of what this last chapter was that we just read.
Nephi's the boss. He can do anything, and Layman is bad, and we got to show he's bad by making his skin dark.
I mean, to be clear, he can do anything, like run away like a little bitch, even though he apparently has the numbers. He has this huge group of people that he takes with him, and he's like, yeah, we couldn't overpower the two dudes and their wives, so we're just gonna fucking bail.
We took our sisters. We took them. We took the sword.
And then we immediately
Zoram's
put them to work
family?
to build a temple out of
Right.
stonework.
I built a temple.
Looking like-
Nephi did build this temple.
Looking like Oompa Loompas because they were all 7.
Okay,
So,
now I'm really
he
curious
doesn't
about when
say
we get
how
to-
big that's temple.
I'm really curious about when we get to the submarines, because I mean, one of the things I'm confused about is
It's
we
like
no longer
4
need
years from now.
Yeah, we're years away. This is the end of the Book of Mormon. We have Second Nephi, Jacob, Enos, Jerem, Omni, Words of Mormon, Mosiah, Alma, Helaman, Third and Fourth Nephi, Mormon, and then finally Ether, right on the middle finger here. That is when we'll finally get to hear about the submarines. And there's only one book after Ether.
We have 420 pages before we get to.
Okay, so they just came over here on a regular boat.
These guys
Nephi
basically, right. And Mormons sort of treat that story as like a mini version of Noah's Ark when you bring up these unskilled workers made a boat. And they're like, yeah, but Noah made an ark. So fucking, what do you want?
Yeah, and just like that ark, they have every kind of animal.
Well,
Nephi
they found them.
didn't.
Yeah, they found every kind of animal on this.
Nephi didn't. The submarines got to bring the animals, and the visuals of that are just way too interesting.
You know, the natural wild buffalo of, I don't know, Guatemala. That's what they found.
All I can think about is the bees. They brought.
That's later.
they have in the submarines, 420 pages from now, but that they bring bees in there with
In their
nothing
submarine. Yeah.
for the bees to
pollinate.
pollinate. And they're in these subs for like 7 months or something. It's just, anyway, we'll get to that. 420 pages.
You're really
Okay, so
forgetting that
Mormons-
God is magic. Like,
I know.
what
That's
do you
how
need
Nephi
here?
built that fucking
anything-
Solomon's temple.
If anything gets fucked up, God made them put them in the submarines. Why not just teleport the fuckers when you're ready? You did it with the kangaroos during the flood. Fuck.
Right.
Mormon skeptic says, with referencing to the other plates, was Joe setting up a sequel that thankfully didn't happen?
Yes.
I think so.
Yes. It's so that it's setting it up so that he can bring forth new scripture if he decides to. Yeah.
And some of it's also just a reference to when Mormon is abridging. So the whole idea is supposed to be the Book of Mormon is a compressed version of what was essentially a library's worth of records. So Mormon and Moroni are abridging this room full of plates and so much information that God commanded these people to keep record of because it's going to be important. And then they're going to use 5% of it. And that's going to get abridged and compressed down into the plates that are then given to Joseph Smith, who further sort of accidentally abridges by losing the first 100 and whatever pages, and further shortens and translates and uses modern colloquialisms for his age. Because we are closing in. I think we're probably only we're within 4 months of getting to see a verse end with adieu.
Yeah, adieu. The French word adieu. I love that.
Adieu.
Yeah.
And then Ivory Darkness says, if I weren't specific when I use a color in my quad, the whole thing would be one color or another. My wrist would die.
Yes.
Don't think I understand that.
Quad is with the scriptures. By the way, for all those who are not Mormon or not anything related to Mormon, books, what Mormons do is they'll put all of them together into one book like this, where it has the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. And so they call it the quad because it's the 4 books. If it's the other thing you could do is have your Bible be one book, and then you have your triple combination, which is Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, Pearl of Great Price. So that's just Mormon scriptures. So you'll hear Mormons refer to their quad. That's what they're talking about.
And you would color it. You'd bring crayons with you, and when you found a verse that was meaningful to you, you would highlight it.
You would highlight it.
I like calling it crayons. That's hilarious.
My God, I know. Usually it was a red pencil. You didn't dare use actual highlighters because it bleeds through the paper too much.
But there were yellow pencils too. You outlined in red pencil. If you were a real member worth anything, you outlined in red pencil and you shaded in yellow.
Yes.
And then Rosanna Keller, $399.99. Wow, thank you, Rosanna.
Yeah.
She says, run away from bees.
Yes.
Nah, submarine with them.
Submarine with them for sure.
At some point, they'll try to start pollinating your nipples or some shit.
Yeah.
We gotta do something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think we're done.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to end on me saying pollinate your nipples. I was so good for most of this goddamn thing.
There's another question asked of us. Do any of you believe anyone who wrote the Book of Mormon was having a genuine experience, so to speak? Or was he just a flat out deceiver? And I'm like, he was on drugs. Joseph Smith was on drugs.
I mean, but even if you want to get into Rignan and Cowdery and the fucking expositor guy and shit, I think they were, by the time they might have started one way, but would have eventually been in on it. And anymore, it seems unlikely that the brethren, quote unquote, aren't aware too.
Right.
The modern day.
I think most of these scribes, like maybe Sidney Rigdon, but at least Oliver Cowdery and them, because they were hella smarter than Joseph Smith was, very likely helped to write the fucking thing.
Yeah, Oliver is probably an author of a very significant portion of this.
Yeah, the parts with the best writing. Really.
Somebody mentions, I thought Mormons were not allowed mind-altering substances.
Not
No, they're not now.
just group hypnosis, I guess.
Yeah, they don't need
I-
it anymore. There's,
I wish Bryce were here because he wrote a paper
did.
specifically on early Mormonism and all the
and theogens.
and probably all the opiates that they were putting in their wine.
Yes,
for
he did.
sacrament.
He co-wrote it with Brian Kassenbach, and they presented it a couple times. It was recently published. Oh, what journal was it? I think it's at the John Whitmer History Association. I think they have published it, and so it's really a fascinating. It's very fascinating hearing him talk about it.
I wish I had time to be on the uptake for more information.
Yeah.
I love being on the learning curve, and then having to produce. I kind of have to. Yeah, I don't have the time to be. I wish I could just be a perpetual student.
Right.
Right.
I mean, our obsession is born out of fucking decades of being fed. We still have more good or less good information than false information we were shoved down our throats growing up. That's where our obsessions come from.
So you said,
Right.
Walker, you said you wish Bryce was going to be here. I understand he will be here next week. And
Yes.
I talked to Brian Dalton today. He said he would be here next week also. I'm looking forward to a continuance with everyone.
Yeah.
We all good?
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna ask Walker. It's Bryce Blankenagel and what was the other person? Brian Kassenbrook. Kassenbrook. Have either of these people heard of just having a regular last name? Okay. Anyway,
It has to be well known, and then you can get people like Eli Bosnick fucking up Blankenagel all the time as a
Blankenagel, Casanova, whatever
Yeah.
it was.
He does the Blankenagel.
All right. Somebody else say a last word, and then that's it.
Last word.
I've never seen Walker Bowe and Kyle Hill in the same room at the same time.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Good night.